Jordan Shanks, welcome back into the weeds, mate.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. I really am.
Fantastic, mate. Well, look, what the fuck just happened? You must feel like Genghis Khan just sort of getting to Austria and going, oh, what do I do now? I've vanquished all my foes. Create some more foes. Like what happens now? Do you turn on yourself? Is there a civil war? Friendly Geordies? Do you turn on the Labor Party? You know, what are you going to do?
Look, there are always skirmishes in an ethnic cleansing that need to be dealt with. And I think that's what the phase that we are in now, which is great, the wipe up. And that's what's been happening at Friendly Geordies now. There has always just been a bunch of thorns in my side that have just endlessly given me the shits by making snarky little videos about me. And I've started attacking them. And I did very much like the top comment of one, which was just like, I often wondered if Alexander would have wept if he was able to crush minnows on TikTok.
Well, the other thing is too, like Paul Keating famously said, don't give a mug an even chance. And my famous quote, most famous Keatingism is, if you see a head, kick it.
Yeah, I know.
Just like,
I'm very much into that philosophy. I really like kicking heads. It's great. Oh, God, isn't it satisfying?
Flog a dead horse.
Flog a dead horse. It's that's really the point that God, look at this one-party state we have now. It's such a beautiful sight to see. I don't remember a victory like that because I don't remember 1996. But, like, I'm imagining that the Liberal Party is in the same turmoil and despair that Labor must have been looking at those numbers. It really just must be an existential... I know that they're keeping a brave face and saying, oh, there's things that we need to sort out and there's issues and we've heard the community and all this kind of...
Yeah,
if I was in the Liberal Party, I would just be like, do I run as an independent next time? Like, I think it's time to jump ship, surely. Am I wrong? Is that what's going on there? Like, you actually have connection to these people. What are they saying? Behind closed doors, if you can.
Well, they're saying they're saying, who are we? What do we do? Is there any point?
Who are we?
Yeah, who are we? Do we change the name completely? Like they're just going, oh yeah.
So they're going for the rebrand.
Yeah, they're going like the rebrand is on. They're going essentially that the conservative side of politics is just the country party. It's just the Nationals, really. If you add up the LNP, which is, the Nationals with the country Liberals and the Nats, that's who's in, and that's the intellectual epicenter of the alternative government is Matt Canavan and George Christensen, and they're probably going, look, let's
the great thinkers,
let's
jump about time.
Yeah, we're going to jump. Let's jump further to the right because at least you get some cut through. Let's just make Bob Catter, bring Bob back in out of the wilderness. That's really what they're facing. There's a crisis, a massive crisis. They ripped what they sowed, and now we've got a one-party state now, essentially, with Albo in charge. For me, it reminds me a lot, like, because I was just, cracking out of the egg, but emerging of Keating-Howard. Like a competent government coming in, whenever it was, 82, 83, with a whole heap of competent people and a whole heap of ideas going, right, now we get to do some things.
Yes.
And set us up.
Yes.
And the coalition, what can they do? They sit there, I hate this term, you hear it again and again, and you hear the Greens and the Liberals go, we're going to hold them to account.
God, I hate that phrase. Oh, my God, I'm so glad that gives you the peeves as well.
It gives everyone the peeves.
Oh, it's so annoying. Okay, sorry, yeah, go on. You have a point.
Yeah, like hold to account. Like it just assumes your superiority, the supercilious, condescending nature, especially of the Greens. Well, we're going to be here to hold you to account. Yeah. It assumes that the other...
Yeah, you're going to hold them to account. Yeah, like you. Not the other way around.
Like if you have a look in, what just happened, the electorate just held you to account. And just, if it wasn't for a proportional, it wasn't for the Senate, you'd be gone. You'd be absolutely gone. So it's a fascinating time, but let's get into it. Like, how did it happen? Where did the Labor Party go so right? And I know you're a stooge and a shill and just a paid operative for the whoever it is.
Yes. So I do have insights when it comes to this because of those reasons.
Yeah, I know, mate.
Oh yeah. But I can't disclose most of them.
That's fine. But like, where did it go so right for Labor? Because when I went on your podcast, everyone was going, "Oh, it's going to be minority government," and la la la, and there was just this massive sort of circle jerk of people going, "Yes, yes, yes," and I was going, maybe. I think Albo's coming home with a wet sail. He seems to be saying a lot of things that are making people go, "Oh," and tune in. Where do you think it went so right for like Labor and so wrong for what was his name? The bald dome. Dutton. I've forgotten
You've
Dutton.
forgotten Dutton.
I forgot.
Like you really are into the weeds, aren't you?
Short-term memory loss. But it's great. It's great short-term memory loss.
Yeah, it's not bad, is
you
it?
can have
I
the
always
same
thought
book.
that the happiest people on earth have to be people with dementia. Can't remember anything. What a gift.
Yeah.
What a gift. It's just being a baby again.
Well,
So good for you.
There's a classic Cheech and Chong movie where there's just a guy really stoned and he's got dementia or whatever, and he's just remembering the funniest thing ever in the world. So he just sits there and goes,
oh my God.
if I'm going to be demented, that's what I want.
Perfect.
I don't want to be
exactly.
like, dribbling my porridge into my lap and going, "Where's Robert?"
No.
I want to be just going like that, cackling like a madman.
Yeah, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You don't really need to explain that you don't want to be constantly waking up in this just like "where's my wife" moment for the rest of your life. Like that's probably not the best one to be in. Yeah, laughing. I'm on board. Yeah, I think that's a good one to go with. That's a good way. And obviously you forgetting Dutton is it's a pretty good start to that. Actually, I've got to say.
Yeah, well, I've forgotten. He said so little. And he was actually, there was no real substance to him. He's just.
Well, do you think that this was the thing that really screwed them? I heard from the grapevine that every other time they have gotten Crosby Textor to do their campaigning. And that is a ruthless, terrifying, algorithmic machine. It's essentially just basically employing Skynet to win your elections for you.
Mm.
Oh my God. Why would you give that up?
Yeah.
Why the hell? That is the dumbest electoral decision I've ever heard. I cannot believe it. This is a ruthlessly effective winning machine tailored for our electoral system with a lot of experience in it and a lot of data to back it up. And this is the whole thing. Like, you would probably know this, that these elections these days, and I do think this, that really electioneering to this point is starting to get to, like with everything else, it is basically just going onto the cloud. Like, it is really just about picking data of specific people in specific seats that you need to hit with the exact fucking message that they need to hear to their ears. Like, it's getting to that point. It's kind of just getting to a point where it's just like whoever builds the best machine wins. It's sort of like what seems to be happening with warfare. You know how I just think about this the other day. You know how in 1984 it was always described that warfare would become professionalized and off in the corner and basically just used to film propaganda to send back. Don't you think that the reality now is actually much closer? Again, The Simpsons, the greatest predictor of all time. Remember when the general is sitting there being like to the kids, "And to go forth, your duty remains." Future wars will not be fought by you, but possibly in space or on a very tall mountain by robots. And as you go forth, your duty remains clear to build and maintain those robots. That's what warfare is now. It's basically just going to be that show Robot Wars. Like, that's what's happening. Like, I think we actually are in the future at this stage. And so when you are fighting an election and you have that machine behind you with the capital to invest in it, and then they traded that in for the machine that won Trump's election, which, great, it won Trump's election. That's all well and good. But we have a completely different electoral system. They have no experience in it. And of course, because like everything else with Donald Trump, it is just purely built off the cult of personality. Their entire campaigning seemed to be just talk about how awesome Trump is. And then they went to the election with how awesome Trump is. And then his stocks just completely plummeted like Tesla shares did. And so then they're just stuck with that. And I think that was the big, on their end, like unbelievably catastrophically bad decision on their end. Unbelievably
just
bad.
Cut and paste the Trump politics, the Trump machine into Australia. We don't have
cut and paste and spending tens of millions of dollars to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was on their end. I think absolutely. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I'll just add this on the Labor Party's end. I think that they actually got a lot better because this seems to be the same back and forth that the Democrats have with the Republicans every election. And that's why you see that chopping and changing that's happening now. And this is, again, I think because things are just becoming more algorithmic than they are just door knocking. And I think that it is every time the Democrats just not having as much money as the Republicans, looking at the electoral machine of the Republicans and thinking, how do we make like a beta copy shit version of that? Sort of just like, I guess, how like Korea looked at the iPhone and said, we'll just make the Samsung Galaxy. Like they have to just keep doing that every election. And I think that the Labor Party pretty much is doing the same thing to the Liberal Party here of just being like, these are the flaws in our machine. This is how we rebuild it for the next election. And they were disciplined in their strategy towards that, and the Liberals just completely. I have no idea how they fumbled the ball that bad, but it
was discipline was the key thing. Like even though the Labor Party machine and Albo, you know, he looked wobbly. You know, I think when I came on your podcast, where people were going, well, you know, Albo's had the summer off. He came back and he looked in fighting trim. He was on message.
Yes,
he was talking about, you know, future made in Australia. He was talking about free TAFE. He was talking about all the things that they clearly knew resonated and on message. And it looked like the coalition were just jumping from one cockamamie scheme to another. They went out and, you know, they rolled out Jacinta Price to as if they hadn't focus group that. Like how did they go out and just, you know, fly a kite on MAGA in the middle of the election campaign? It gets totally blown to pieces. It just looked like a disorganized, ad hoc, on the run shit show when they should have just cruised.
And you know what's great about the Australian electorate, and I think this is because of our electoral system, and I'd like to ask you about this before, but I do think, and I will say this about the Australian public, right? One thing that I do greatly admire and respect about them, there's a lot that I don't, but there's one thing that I've always liked about them, which is that they seem to reward the party that looks like the party of serious adults. And I like that. I like the fact that there is people there that are kind of just like, these guys look like that they are competent and in charge, and they look like grey suits that are kind of just, you know, like understand bureaucracy, and they're doing that. I like it. It shows a sensibility and maturity that other electorates across the planet just don't seem to show. And so exactly what you're saying there, the optics of that was that you saw Dutton just jumping from harebrained scheme to harebrained scheme, and then you saw Albo, which is exactly what he stylized himself as, which is opposite land Howard.
Yeah.
And look, all credit to Howard. Obviously, massively disagreed with him. But when he was there, he had a very talented front bench.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Very talented front bench.
Like Hawke in, you know, 83.
And Hawke had it.
Hawke had it. He said, look, you know, there's me, and it's not the cult of personality. You know, I'm a sort of everyday sort of guy. All the rest go the rabbits, all the rest, drink a beer, all the rest. But behind me are a whole heap of PhDs and people went to Harvard and people that know their shit on a whole range of areas, and we're coming to sort this shit out. Where with Dutton, you went, this guy looks like a buffoon who's just into, you know, nepotism.
And he's the best they've got.
He's the best they've got. And then you've got Angus Taylor, and you just go...
waiting in line.
Waiting in line. And you just go, the talent, you know, people reward, I think, talent. People look, I think, as you said, they assessed the lineups and went, these guys have got no depth. And they're just, you know, it's just jingoism. They're just selling this Trump politics, and people saw through it, and they wanted real answers to real problems. You know, Albo fucking towed them up. It's ridiculous.
No, it really is. That was incredible. I'll tell you something else that I'm very happy about for the future, that I think is like, adds on to that. This was something that was I can't remember who was pointing this out, but someone I was talking to was just saying, like, again, if you look at Howard, his front bench, talented, competent, serious adults. John Howard, talented, competent, serious adult. Next generation of Liberals, you look at Tony Abbott, and it was just someone trying to do like a parody of what they were, but just not pulling it off. And then you had Malcolm Turnbull come in, and Malcolm Turnbull, I suppose, did pull off that image, to be fair to him. But again, like you saw the clown show happening behind him. And then you got Scott Morrison at that point, just the wheels fell off, and it was, no, we can't keep going on with this. And again, it was sort of that behind this, not the main guy, but just the clown show that you saw on the front bench, becoming more and more exposed through that time. And this is something that I didn't think about it, but I think that this was like another masterstroke, because it's just this. Look, you're on the same page as me. You look at Keating and you think that was a once in a lifetime genius. He could have been on that level with like Einstein or something if he chose to go into physics, but I think just purely because of the lack of opportunity in Australia and the fact that he was born in a time where he was from the working class, and it's just like, where do you go from there? His intellect and talents was fostered by the Labor movement that sort of allowed him to go through that field. And I seriously do think every time I read a book about him, every time that I, like understand like the placements that he was putting in place, that guy was thinking 100 years into the future. You know what I mean? Like that is a level of genius and intellect that we were very lucky to have, that I think most countries on earth have never seen. And it was just purely in that realm. Now, one of the big things that I think happened in the 80s that was a good reshift, and I do genuinely think that he was thinking about this. I think by making it so much easier in this country to be rich than it was beforehand. Now, a lot of that was also about lifting the working class out, making it easier for them to get loans to start up small businesses and all that kind of stuff. But also from the elite end of town, it's kind of just like, look, there's all the tools here to start up your own little investment merchant bank. I mean, that's what Malcolm Turnbull was doing. That's what all of those like 80s like parodies of what a billionaire was were doing. They were all, here's the tools for it. Go out and do that. I think what he was doing was draining the Liberal Party of its inherent talent, which is that if you go to an elite private school before that, much like a lot of third world countries, if you are well off, where do you go? You go into politics, so you make sure that the contracts benefit you and your business, right? If you are rich in Australia and you come from the elite class, why would you go into politics for your 200 grand a year into something that is just like comparatively to the rest of the world, not corrupt at all? Like it is just you basically just dealing with a bunch of grandmas saying like Telstra's being mean to me.
And you've got
you
no
just
tenure, your life expectancy is like 8 years and then you're unemployable. And
then you're unemployable and probably made a bunch of enemies in the process of people, it's why would you do it? Why wouldn't you just go in, make your $1 million a year? If you have half a brain and you're from an elite private school in this country, my God, you can clean up. Why would you go into politics, especially in a system that is kind of just set up that's just like comfortable, world leading system really, that's comfortable enough for you to just go in there and like lead your life. You don't need to worry about politics at all. You can just let someone else deal with that. Where is the incentive for the Liberal Party to gain talent? So now you just see it just go down and down until you get to Susan Ley, which was just like a failed traffic controller and failed real estate agent, failed at fucking everything, is the head of the Liberal Party now. That's your talent base because everyone else is just in business. And I think that was a huge, I think that piece of infrastructure was put in place in the 80s.
It's a really important thing, and it sort of did away too with the Greens in just the state should be responsible for everything, just full socialism. The Greens 10 years ago decided, look, we're not going to be the teals. We're going to be the, de-link or whatever they are. We're going to be the left party. We're just going to be a socialist party, hiding behind a green triangle. But that argument is. That strategy is all about being anti-business, and Australia is just absolutely literally a billion businesses. It's small businesses, sole traders. It's workers putting into superannuation, who then invest in what? In business. So
Exactly.
you can't be. It's impossible to go out there and be an anti-capitalist when we live in a social democratic capitalist utopia,
yes.
Really.
Yes.
Like we're the richest.
Yes.
Like Australia's
doesn't get any better than this.
I think it's like bits of Rome in about like 600 AD and Switzerland, and us. We're the we've
peak
got
of civilization.
Yeah,
Peak of civilization.
Peak of civilization.
That's how you get here.
Peak of humanity. This is it.
Yep.
This is
I'm
it.
telling you, this is as good as it gets. And like the more that I think about it, the more I'm just like, no, it's pretty damn good here. It's really good.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. And we've got a possibility to solve our problems, okay, income redistribution and housing and these types of things. But Albo put those on the table, real solutions, massive investment, tens of billions of dollars in housing, in infrastructure. And I remember saying this on your podcast, which was, like Albo knows Australia. He knows the roads. He knows the suburbs. He knows
That was great. I didn't even think about that before, but yeah.
his cabinet. They've got this granular understanding, and I think plan. And people saw that, and so like the northern suburbs of Sydney, like are voting for the Labor Party. Like it's game over. Like what happened?
Wasn't that incredible?
It's just fucking nuts.
Like they nearly won the Golden Retriever seats.
I don't know.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Like from now on, like Labor wins staffy seats. They don't win Labrador seats.
Yeah,
and
I think
they got this close.
This close.
So like the Liberal Party members that you look at, and you're just like, you've got 8 kids for sure. You know, like they nearly won those seats.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, they're winning they're winning all the burbs. They're winning. And really, it's I think a real vulnerability. For the Teals is that Labor can like take those seats back.
You reckon?
I think absolutely.
Holy shit! I think what a world.
Well, look, with no real with very little leverage in politics now. They're not in the balance of power in the lower house. Climate change is not solved globally, no doubt, but in Australia, really. We are exporting some gas and coal. There's no doubt about it. But that really is the issue of Japan and Korea and the rest to get off those fossil
exactly.
fuels.
I hate that argument that the Greens always put up.
Yeah.
It's so bullshit. It's just like it's very clearly stipulated in the UN. You are responsible for your own emissions.
Yeah, they're not our Scope 1 emissions. But in Australia, like we've got this incredible industrial revolution happening in terms of renewable energy.
Yep.
Like New South Wales now is already at over 40% reduction on our 2005 greenhouse gas emissions. We are going to be at 80% renewable energy in New South Wales by 2030.
Incredible.
Like
incredible.
Yeah, we've got the biggest rollout of rooftop solar in the world.
Yep.
In Australia.
Yep.
Good news. Look, what else is there to do? You know, we're gonna have to we'll have to deal with some landfill and electric cars and all the rest of it. But like I saw there was a Greens podcast. What's it called? Something fucking Dangleberries, whatever.
Dangleberries.
I can't remember. It's got the couple of people just coping with their election loss. Anyway, they were going, we matter still. Don't worry, we're gonna come back. Blah blah blah. And then they went and they were talking about their portfolios, and one of them didn't know that Adam Bant had been their climate spokesperson. They said, who's got the climate
Greens podcast?
Yeah, on a pro Greens podcast, they didn't know that Adam Bant had been their climate spokes. That's how little he spoke about it. That's how marginalised it was. And it's been marginalised because the Labor Party fucking is doing the business. Like in New South Wales, there's bipartisan support for, like this generational renewal in our energy infrastructure, and it's fucking working. It's on track. It's going to roll out. And so, what are the Teals? How are the Greens? What are the Teals, going to argue for that's going to cause people to say, well, why don't I just vote for the government on these issues?
Exactly, especially because, and this is something that I'm very happy about because I think we clocked this last time that we're on the podcast. I had the suspicion that people weren't cottoning on to the whole independent grift that is happening now. Teals are front and centre of it, but there's dozens of others that are running on it. And it's basically just a Liberal with a different brand of just like, because the phrase independent hasn't been sullied yet. And I think that it will be sullied as a result of these people's actions. For whatever reason, the Teals voting against historic IR reform, that didn't seem to clock on to them. I suppose, again, because Teal voters, why would they care about penalty rates? Then the next one after that was donation reform, and I cannot believe that they won that argument.
We clocked that one. Oh, my God.
God, that was pathetic, wasn't it? Yeah. And then for whatever reason, them fighting for this slight shift in tax exemptions for over $3 million on your superannuation, that exposed them. And I don't know why, but it was just only a matter of time before it was going to slip that it's like, oh yeah, this is just the wets of the Liberal Party. That's all this is.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that that's happening. So look, I think that as soon as somebody realizes the Liberal Party, this is why I'm just going to be pushing this relentlessly for the next 3 years. The Liberal Party has always just been the anti-Labor Party. The entire reason that it exists is because Robert Menzies realised, look, to win power, I don't know, like, you know, the grazers and the industrialists in the city, they're going to have to put aside their petty cultural differences and they're going to have to go under a broad tent, and we are just the not Labor Party. That's essentially what we are. We are there purely, the entire grand project of the Liberal Party is to keep the Labor Party out of power. Yep. That's it. That's its entire purpose of existing. And I think that once you just get into people's minds, and I think that we have the tools to do it because of social media now, that that side of politics is always going to exist regardless of its brand. It is always going to be the not Labor Party. I think that you can start shifting, like no one's even going to fall for like the but she's got a new hat shift that's going to happen. So I'm kind of like optimistic that you, as you are, about the teals. I wasn't before. I thought this is the new threat. I don't know, maybe it's just because it was such a convincing victory that I'm kind of thinking, no, this is a winnable fight. And then the other one that you're talking about with the Greens is, as you said, it's not even compatible with Australia. But I think that also, I was just reading stats about this to put into your Adam Bandt point. A third of Greens voters don't even know who Adam Bandt is.
Yeah.
Now, the entire point of isn't that incredible? Doesn't that say, that's it, everything you need to know, doesn't it? These people that just think that they're so enlightened about politics, think that they're so much morally superior to everybody else.
Yeah.
It is a party that is run purely under the guise of I am morally superior because I vote for this party.
I'm reading The Guardian. I'm worried about everything.
Yes.
Yeah, I know all the problems. I know all the problems in the world.
And it's skin deep.
Yeah,
it's skin deep.
It's
skin deep. It's brand. That's all it is.
It is.
And so I just think, you know, if you are able to present to people, as you said before, look, there is a party that is a party of materialism. I think that a lot of these other parties, like your Greens, like your One Nation, actually, I very much like your thoughts on this. Have you ever heard of the phrase post-materialism?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would very much like to pick your brains about that because I've just been obsessed with it and I can't unsee it ever since I've seen it, which is that in a society like ours where you have like 30% of the population that, let's be honest, is pretty redundant at this point because the machine is working so well and they're on their $100,000 a year as an arts curator or something that's like pretty useless, like really doesn't really need to be there. What do these people do with their time? Like, of course, they're not going to be attracted. I will give the Liberal Party this. It is a party based on material circumstances. It's not our class's material circumstances, but they have to deliver to their electorate results, to their voting constituency, real world results. That's why it continues to get elected. The Labor Party has to deliver real world results when it's in power. It is forced to do that. It is a party based on material outcomes, right? The Greens and One Nation, as far as I can see, is just the manifestations of middle class narcissism. And that's basically my only concern going forward now is just that, like, the more that you make society better, the more your own society becomes its own enemy. I don't know. Have you ever, like, this is something that I'm obsessed with at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's true that essentially we're in the Brave New World phase of politics where people are just taking soda and playing volleyball and going to orgies and then you know, deciding that, you know, that we're going to change the government because I don't like the colour of the togas, you know. Like
yes.
Like, they're getting everything they need when they need it, and they're creating things to be fucked off about.
Exactly. That's the other thing. And also having this unbelievable expectation that government should act like your Uber Eats app on your phone. That's the other thing that's incredible to me. And also this just like death. This is my go-to of just like, oh, this is an idiot pretending to be smart. And it is a catch cry that the teals have just adopted. And it has been pushed onto their voters. But that phrase like policy over party. Now, that to me always just rings true of somebody that is just like, this is what I think a policy is. Facebook posts. That's what I think a policy is. I've put up a Facebook post. Where is my Uber Eats Thai food, please? This exists now. Where is it? I ordered that. Why isn't the button working? This is the age that we live in now. And it's just like no one seems to understand that government goes through like processes and everything takes fucking years and there's like a lot of preparation before it. This is all things that like...
There's a massive legacy, and that is reality. You know, where you are, like all the things that exist and the people we have to take with us.
Yeah.
I see this again and again, like with the Greens screaming about the Great Koala National Park. Now, the Great Koala National Park was a Labor Party policy. They're bringing it. It's going to happen. They're working through a process of and I get updates about it all the time from the minister in New South Wales. I say, okay, how's it going? And they're going, okay, we're planning it out. We're working about a transition package for the industry. We want to know like how the park's going to work, what's going to come next, what the infrastructure it needs. You know, the whole thing. We're doing it in a coherent, organised way, and we just have like these. The Greens just screeching at the government the whole time about make the park, make the park. No
just
detail, hitting the button,
no detail,
like
none.
just like, and you're going, hold on, why aren't you sitting down, going through the detail of what the park looks like, what the sawmillers are going to do with their lives, what a tourism industry looks like? Get into the detail, accept that the park's happening, and expedite the process of getting there by helping the government get there. But it's not really about helping the government, going, good idea, we'll share in the accolades for the idea and we'll share in the outcome, because they exist because of the problem. The problem goes away. The problem goes away, they go away. So they've got to perpetuate this angst around the issue rather than actually, deal with our issues and
take credit for it.
And take
it's a classic strategy of theirs, which is always just to put in like a shitty private members bill, which is basically just like graffiti on a toilet.
Yeah,
and then saying, "Oh, we thought of this years before. They've just copied our plan."
Yeah,
it's unbelievable how they're able to get away with it.
I see that with drug law reform. We have got shit drug law reform in this country. Like we've got a shit system when it comes to drugs. It's a big area of social policy we need to work on. The people that have had carriage of it in our arguing for it and putting forward the ideas have been the independents and Greens, and nothing's fucking happened because all their ideas are just this crap.
Pass it.
Yeah, it just
like this
just
is
pass
the policy ribbon cut.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's it.
Cut to the ribbon cut. Why does it? There's nothing else before.
Yeah,
that.
I've got the
building
bill.
Doesn't need to
I've
be
got
built.
the bill.
Just cut the ribbon.
Here it is, and sign up. I want your email address. And it's a campaigning to donate here. It's just this crash through shit policy. Rather than go, okay, I need to build a coalition of people. Where are we? I need to talk to the cops. I need to talk to the churches. I need to talk to the service providers. I need to talk to other political parties and go, let's have a stepped path to reform, because they don't want reform. They don't want the problem solved because they want an email
list.
Yeah, an email list.
Yeah.
The worse, the better. That's the catch cry of the socialists.
Yeah.
The worse, the better.
Mm-hmm.
People are starving in the streets. There's bread rights.
Good news.
Good news.
Yeah, good news. Good news.
We've got a cache of guns and we're taking power. But people have seen through it. It's incredibly refreshing. And it's not just their ideas that have just evaporated and, disappearing before our eyes as just an irrelevancy. It's also their support base. What I see in being the party of the workers, it's pretty useful. There's going to be some.
There's going to be some.
There's going to be some, even if they are robots. But will robots get the vote? Should they get the vote? I mean, people fall in love with rubber ducks. Maybe they'll fall in love with robots and giving them rights. But I don't know.
They'll get there.
They'll get there. They'll get there. The party of the robots.
Legal arguments than we will.
They
sure.
will.
But, yeah.
They sure will. And they're handing out how to vote. They'll be pretty useful. But the Liberals, you just see this demographic waterfall of Liberals, just supporters, just disappearing off into the never.
Yes.
They've lost. They never had Gen X. They Alphas and Gen Z and all the millennials. They've lost them. the boomers are disappearing, the Liberal Party are disappearing with it, and the younger people looked at the Greens and just said, "Yeah, bullshit, man." Like, you know,
It's incredible.
It is like,
Isn't it?
and the other interesting thing is the Greens like purported to be the party of youth, but in actual fact, their support base is pretty similar to the Liberal Party. It's
Really?
Yeah. It's older, educated, boomers,
Okay.
middle class.
Yes.
You know, got a negatively geared unit on the Central
Yes,
Coast.
yes.
Also, a lot of older women, lesbians, all the rest. So with the woke wars, their attack on landlords and all the rest of it, they've lost a lot of their support base. They've alienated a lot of their support base. The key characteristic of a Greens supporter and voter is an atheist. And so sort of cozying up with, Palestine and the rest put a lot of wasps off, a lot of wasps off. Going after, negative gearing, rightly or wrongly, has put a lot of the Balmain basket weavers off who are sitting on 3 units. So where's their support base coming from when Albo's getting out there and saying, look, I'm going to smash up your uni debt. There's free TAFE. We're spending $30 billion on housing. And what are the Greens doing? Saying, the only thing I can remember them saying is like something about a toothbrush.
Oh God, wasn't that pathetic?
Like-
And it was the most annoying because it's. I know that you hate these people as much as I do, but watching The Guardian do their breakdown before the election, which is the endless, the Greens are going to come in and, we're going to have a minority government that is held to account by the Greens. The glory days are coming. The golden age is here. That kind of podcast. And absolutely none of the depth or substance that you were able to speak of. These are professional political commentators, nothing. And then they're sitting there and saying, the campaign between Dutton and Albanese has been very boring. And it's like, what's fun? And they're like, I like Adam Bant on a bus with a giant toothbrush.
God.
That was these are people in their 50s and 60s. You understand?
Yeah.
Like they're sitting there and it's like they've never read a single word in their entire life. Their brain is absolute mush, and they see a prop comic that is basically just, what are the Greens now? They're fucking Carrot Top. That's like bringing a salmon into Parliament and slapping it on the table. This is prop comedy. This is what these people respond to. Yeah, I know. Like
that's my job.
That's how I felt as well. It's just like, dude, we're supposed to be the clowns.
Yeah.
You're the ones that are sitting there saying, I have the ideas for this green utopia.
I'm the alternative Labor Party.
Look at this guy here. He has so much more depth and understanding than I've ever heard from any Green ever, that just seem to repeat these dumb talking points that are easily disproven. So for the whole thing, what was their whole campaign? Their whole campaign was just a boring, because they absolutely fucked it with housing. That's when they showed their hand. I think that this is exactly the same with Teals.
Yeah,
Teals, the housing thing, that was just... you could really sink your teeth into that and just drag their name through the mud. That was an albatross around their neck.
CPRS, and a lot of people went, hold on, we've seen this
Something's
before.
wrong there.
So I remember this. Remember we had a price on carbon way back in the day, and we didn't do that because by 2020 it would only be 5% and blah, blah, blah. If it all goes bad, nothing will really happen. And they saw them block the CPRS all the way back in the day, led to fucking a decade of liberal wingnuts. And then we housing, and they're just getting in the way of housing. And, you could see them, just rubbing their hands together. This will really fuck people up. And then they'll get angry and they'll vote for me. And, my margin's going up in Griffith if I keep door knocking. But old Maxie, dacked. Absolutely dacked. How
that
good.
Was satisfying.
Oh my God.
On election day, I was just like, holy hell. You know what's incredible on election night? I want to hear your responses to it. Dutton, I was like, I just felt sorry for him at the end. I was like, no one deserves to be this shellacked. No one deserves a defeat this humiliating. I was like, stop. It was really uncomfortable at the end. And
It was
also
a
the fact
public,
that
a public execution. It was like
it was
like
humiliating.
someone
Yeah, it was-
twitching on the rope. You're like, oh,
yeah, I know.
cut
Yeah,
them down.
medieval public executions, not when they figured out you could snap the neck. It was kind of just a slow strangulation. It was horrible. So bad to look at. And, oh, God. And I just know from personal, like, just talking to people, they're always like, look, behind, like, he's a cop, but he's not a bad guy. He's not a bad guy, but you never hear that about Max Chandler, Math, or Adam. Like, everyone that you speak to is just like, what a cunt. You know what I mean? Like, what an absolute cunt. And so like, it was just so satisfying watching them just face the gallows on the same day, getting the same hanging, squirm, tweak more. It was, wasn't it so, oh, the glorious.
Mate.
Holy hell, the cherry on top when I thought that Adam Bant was just going to clench onto his seat. Nah, you're gone as well. And they're watching the Greens recalibrate their entire story 5 times over to the end of going like, no, it's actually good that we lost our head. It was actually good. It was actually a victory. It was a victory that we lost our leader and 3/4 of our seats in the lower. This was a huge astonishment. We've got a mandate from the public. You don't have a mandate. What happened to you? You survived the purge. That's what happened to you. That's it. And you're not going to, I'm full agreement with you, it's not going to happen the second time
And it's
around.
a repudiation of 10 years of their strategy, which was like they really had a choice. They had a choice to sort of either become the teals, like 10 years ago to become the teals, or they could say, we can just be sanding the gears of the Labor Party to the point that people will replace the Labor Party with us.
And now the teals exist.
Yeah.
So that's gone.
So that's gone.
Yeah.
You know, and where to for them? You know, and they've essentially put a teal in charge who isn't going to appeal to like she's an inner city mum from Brisbane with big dangly earrings who's concerned about the Great Barrier Reef and climate change and all that good stuff.
Dude, do you call it that too? Because that's my nickname for them, the big earrings cult.
They are. The
Every time.
Yeah,
Stop
colour,
the Darnie, something like
the
that.
color coordinated earrings. It's just like, oh my God.
Always.
You know, like where to now when you've got a Labor Party who's, you know, in government and is going to do some good things. Like, I think they've really got nowhere to go. But, you know, I hope that they leave their carcass hanging up there. You know, I want it in the gibbet for a long time.
Me too, yeah.
For people to go,
Wouldn't that
hey,
be great?
be really careful what you wish for, because
Yes.
you split the left of politics. Then you end up leaving it open for these fuck knuckles over here who are just, you know, your rent boys for Gina and the rest, and you don't get the things done that you need to, like housing. And all credit to you, mate. I've got to give you all credit to you for explaining this stuff in the new media to people, going, this is what the Labor Party's putting on there. It's not a cartoon. Here are the policies that Labor are putting forward. This is what they're saying. This is why it will work. And this is why getting in the way of it is just a cynical, mean, and absolutely transparent political ploy by some people who've never fucking known what it's like to be homeless. You know?
Yeah, that's the worst.
Exactly.
So infuriating, because you just know, you can see it over and over again from anybody in the Greens. These are exactly what I'm talking about, that new excess of society. There's a great book that I recommend called Whitlam's Children, and you can see the difference in psychology and dynamics of the Greens as opposed to people that entered the Labor Party, and it always just comes down to the same thing. People from the Labor Party, working class. People from the Greens you can remember the working class, but because of the reforms of Whitlam and then Keating, and it's just, dude, it's like a party filled with daddy issues. You know what I mean? Like, they love Whitlam because Whitlam gave them the safety net to like not fail, and they hate Keating because it was just like, here's your opportunity for endless expansion, and they realize, oh, I'm not talented enough. I'm not as talented as I think I am in my head, and so I'm not like one of these. I'm doing 3 degrees. People.
I'm doing my 3rd degree.
I'm doing my 3rd degree. And so but I swear to God, that's what it comes down to at the end. It's just kind of like, look, you have unlimited potential now in the global economy, and they realize I am not capable of taking the benefit of that. And so they've just like made him the bad guy in their books, and they love Whitlam, and they've tried to like take his moniker of it. And in that process, I think that that's what's happened there, which is that these are people that used to be part of the working class, and they aren't anymore, and they're well off, and they know that their existences are pretty fucking meaningless. Sorry, but like you go.
You got to say it is an existential crisis, and but like to the benefit of our country, it means that we can, I think, really deal with some of the issues that we've got coming down range, like how we the big issue coming down range for our society is going to be in labour. It's going to be, what do we do with everyone when AI comes along,
Yep.
when efficiency comes along?
Yes.
You know, how do we
Yes.
how do we keep everyone doing something meaningful and
Yes.
pay for all of that
Yes.
when there's this massive transformation in labour where we have essentially, for the first time around the globe, we have massive increase in technological, advancement. That's what we're seeing right now with AI and the power of our computing, but declining population. And like the first industrial revolution was, hey, our babies aren't dying and we've got a steam train. There's,
Yeah.
we're like exploding, big moves.
Yeah.
This time we're going, hey, I can simulate the universe on my, my iPhone, but there's no children. You know, how we deal with immigration, and the Greens are just not grown up. The Liberal Party are just not, you just can't trust these people to deal with these issues properly.
No.
And we need a grown-up government. Well done. I think we've got one.
I think that we've got one. And I think that it's going to be there for a long time. And I think that the Albanese has done the right thing, which is, and this is the first time that I remember it, is exactly what we were talking about before, but in my lifetime, I never have ever remembered the Labor Party as the party of adults. It was always the rebel party. But like, you want to be the natural party of government. That's how you do it. And it seems like he has taken that mantle. And it seems like, as we were saying before, you've got 6 people in the front bench right now that I can think of off the top of my head that could easily be prime minister and get changed over immediately.
And the opposition, they just don't have a message. They don't have the support base, and they don't have, importantly, the coin. Where's the money going to come from for the Liberal Party and the Greens? The union movement, which some of them have sort of looked at the Greens and said, oh, look, we'll dance with them to annoy Labor, blah, blah, blah. And the Liberals, well, the big end of town, they're going, dead brands, where's the money going to come from? And then you have workers, these gigantic superannuation, funds that are just going to looking for money to pump into the economy. I mean, where the unions are their tails are up. Where's the money coming from? Where's the support coming from these other parties? I don't know. So look, it's an opportunity to start a new political party just to fucking keep it interesting. That's why I'm here in the Legalise Cannabis Party. Get that done.
Now, I don't know. How'd you guys go?
Pretty well. We got 600,000 votes in the Senate. We missed out. We're a little bit of a cork on the ocean, really, mate. There was a gigantic Labor tsunami. So the way it worked in the Senate was Labor's vote was just too fucking big. Then they were getting in a lot of states three senators or 2 and a bit.
Yeah.
And some places they were saying in Queensland, will we get? Labor was worried 18 months ago. Will we get a senator? We're going to get wiped out. Bam. And it was just this red wave. So the sweet spot for us would have been if Labor got a bit over 2 quotas. They were getting 2 3/4, 3 quotas. But we got a really healthy vote. We got about 4% around the country. So we got about 600,000 votes around the country. It was only our second election. We ran in 41 seats. We had a preference deal with Labor in Victoria, which was pretty useful. We raised some money. We raised the profile. And we learned a lot about who our voters are. Our voters, a guy's called Trevor with a goatee, work forklift, out at Auburn. And then it's not a progressive party. It's not a progressive, far left party, the Legalise Cannabis Party in terms of its support base. It's across the board because drug use is an issue that's, left and right. How we deal with our vices is an issue. Rich people, poor people, working class, regional, rural, inner city. They're all dealing with these issues, and so it's sort of it's not an ideological base. It's not. It's a bit. We learn a lot about who our voters are, where they are, and they're on the sort of the outer suburban edges of major cities. they're regional, they're working class. There's a lot of crossover with some of the other micro parties like the Shooters and Libertarians and others like that. And so we learned a lot, and we raised some good money, and so we're well placed for the next state elections. We missed out on a senator in Victoria, but we were close. We were in what they call the last exclusion in a lot of states. One Nation, we were just a boil on the arse of the body politic, just turned up again, and But
Do you know how many votes they got in the Senate?
I think around the country it's probably sub 1 million, but probably about 700,000 or 800,000, that sort of thing.
So you're getting close to One Nation votes.
Yeah, we're just behind One Nation. So it goes Labor.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I think it goes Labor, Coalition, Green, One Nation, us. So we're the fifth largest.
Labor, Coalition, Green, One Nation, you.
Yeah.
And
so
basically you need to peel 100,000 votes.
Yeah, if we like we were very.
And you know what? I would imagine that there's One Nation voters that you can peel.
Oh yeah. So we learn a
And
lot.
Greens voters, like Jesus, yeah, you could peel a lot.
Yeah. We I think those brands are in trouble. We think that.
Do you?
Oh yeah.
You think One Nation's in trouble?
I think so. I think they're like, what are they going to do? What are they're not in the balance of power. If Pauline Hanson, falls under a bus, what is it? It's only because
That's true.
It's only because Pauline's got, her, big red head on the Sky News and the Today Show. I mean, how much free media does she get? She can just say anything, and the Today Show gets her on, and all the rest of it. And Sunrise, she's had so much free media.
Do you think that's because she says controversial things?
No, I don't think it is. I can't think of anything she really says. She just has a bellyache about something, and I think that there is an anti-immigration element, to what she's saying, and just racists, I'm voting for Pauline because.
But it's really strange because it's any one of those movements across the world, like, okay, so I don't know, Nigel Farage, for instance, like classy Trump. You know what I mean? Like he's so funny. He's really funny. He's really charismatic. I love watching him. It makes sense that he is able to get that vote there. But when you see Pauline Hanson, I've always thought, what is her appeal? The only thing that I can really put onto it is authenticity.
Yeah, it is.
She's a very authentic politician.
She's prepared to be dumb in public, and people go, "Oh, good on her."
Good on it. And dude, I feel that. As a person, it's she is saying something embarrassing there, and it's just like, well, she is saying what she's thinking, and
it's not much.
It's not much, but she's still saying it.
That's it.
She's got the guts to say it. No one else will.
She's prepared to, take her opinions out onto the Today Show, and they're stupid. But she's prepared to do it in public, and people give her credit for that. And I think she's just, of a particular part of the algorithm would say these people, Karens, out in Ipswich, there's enough of them in the country to vote for her. But I do think it all depends on her. One Nation is Pauline Hanson. She tried to get her daughter up in Tasmania, and they missed out down there. So that generational change missed out. So we think that, next federal election, another % or two, and we're in the mix in a couple of states, no doubt. So we're working on that. But certainly we think that the issue of drug law reform is the big unfinished social reform in this country. Because we've got marriage equality, we've sort of dealt with discrimination, and we sort of had a go at, racism and The Voice and that sort of stuff. That's been put in the freezer for a while, I think. But drug law reform and how we deal with the politics of vice is really big. Gambling, vapes, tobacco, booze, drugs. Australia's absolutely shit at it. It's basically in the basket of pretty much from the get-go, from the rum core all the way through to now. Australia has been we don't really care about what happens in society. All we give a fuck about is who controls mining, who controls land, and who controls the drugs, alcohol, tobacco, these types of things. These were the big commodities that sort of, and levers that, that I think vested interest wanted to have their hands on. Gambling, alcohol, New South Wales, the Daily Telegraph is really there to sort of manage vested interests in gambling, alcohol, and drugs. Like that they get rich. The Daily Telegraph is getting rich on stories about, cocaine wars. That's what they sell their papers on. So they don't want the cocaine wars to go away. The New South Wales Police, which is one of the largest police forces on earth, I think it's the third largest after New York, the LAPD. They don't want the drug wars to go away, because what are they going to do? What are they going to do if everyone's, getting a prescription and going down to their dispensary and, there's the money's taken out of it. So, yeah, there's a big issue with how we do a pretty bad job at regulating the vice in this country, and so it's unfinished business. And the right of politics have just, they're an irrelevance, because they just say no, just ignore it, and the Greens have had a carriage of it for 30 years and done fucking nothing.
Fuck all. And I will say that you can tell from their social media posting, this seems to be the thing that does really resonate with them. They've really tried to push dental care into Medicare for some reason. They do it every time, and it always just falls on its ass. Just as a quick side note, how hilarious is this? Stephen Bates, that one that lost, that no one knew, and I still don't know who he is, frankly. I was just pointing out, because I don't think that this is ever told to Zoomers ever, where they go, yeah, you just chuck in dental care. It's just like a plus feature. It's just like when I get my private insurance, but like the public. And then I said, that's all well and good. What do you do about the fact that we have nowhere near the amount of dentists in this country for it? No answer, nothing. Anyway, someone who was watching that went over to Stephen Bates and said, what do you do about the lack of dentists? And then he said, quote, how is that a problem?
That's right.
And these are the people that you're talking about, like they're going to solve the marijuana issue, forever.
These
are the people that are going to put that infrastructure in place.
The Greens policy for cannabis, because they've been overtaken by socialists, was to create like stat weed, like state-owned weed, which no one does. Like they wanted the state to grow the weed, and like state-owned cannabis farms, and then dispense that.
Mm-hmm. And then I would imagine that it's exactly the same with every other one of their policies. Where's the detail? Nothing.
And what they can't say out loud is, we just don't want any corporation. Like, we hate corporations, but in actual fact, the corporation is just a business. Like you never, ever, ever, ever see the Greens talking positively, or really even standing at solar and wind farms, because they're owned by like AGL. They hate it. They were like, oh, you can't go out there because this wind farm is like, which is saving the planet and creating clean energy, is owned by a corporation. And that is the madness in there. That they can't get behind enterprise, business, and the rest, because they're like, well, our product differentiation with Labor is we are still, old school communists. We're living, I
didn't even think about that before. So really, it's really hard to think of like the intellectual vision guiding the Greens. But if there was some intellectual infrastructure behind it, it would be kind of just like bring back the Soviet Union.
It is.
Is that it?
It literally is. And you see, you actually see a lot of the like they say they're doing it ironically, but they've got the hammer and sickle on all their shit.
Can you answer this? Sorry, you continue your point. I just wanted you to know. I just want to ask this because I've noticed this so much with that specific type of person. Why are they so into Soviet propaganda art? Like it's such a trait that runs through all of them. Why is that?
Because it's basically a wink and a nod to the fact that you are a communist. That you are like you like, I'm being ironic. No, I'm not. In actual fact, we believe in this one-party state, and I've read a little bit of Marx and dialectical materialism, and all of a sudden, fucking, I'm just I'm too young to remember Ceausescu and Kampuchea and fuck genocide and, nuclear oblivion on our doorstep. And just the collapsed, failed societies everywhere, and the fact that America, and the West won the Cold War because people were given the freedom to invent shit and create shit and support business, and social democracies flourished. We didn't need this one-party gulag state, but they are like Max Chandler Mather. Was too left for the Labor Party, thrown out because he is. Like if behind closed doors, he would say, he would argue that communism, he would come for the reasons why communism is a better system and only failed because of X. He would rationalize it and create the reasons. These people hate business, yet they're in inner cities where you've just got like the centers of capitalism, and everyone's a sole trader. Everyone's got an ABN. Like Newtown in Sydney's got more small businesses than anywhere else in any electorate in like Australia.
Yeah, and in their worldview, they would want like government mandated artists.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have your state supplied plumber. Like you'd have a stat plum and all the rest of it. So their solutions are just vacuous and redundant, and have been seen through by like a society and a group of people went, hey, we want grown-up responses and proper policy for some really serious issues.
Well, this is the other thing that I think is really interesting, and I would very much like to know more about it because I don't think that I do know enough. But much like in the 80s, much like in the 90s, it was very obvious that Labor had a grand vision of where they wanted to take the country, and John Howard had a grand vision of where he wants to take the country. I really want to know what Albo's grand vision is. I want to know what he thinks the future looks like. And I think that also, but what I think is happening as well is that you can sense that Anthony Albanese actually wants to take the country somewhere. You saw the Liberal Party's response, and it was just like, dude, they are thinking about the next hour. Yeah. They are not thinking about the next decade. And then you look at the Greens and exactly what you're talking about. Where is your vision? Like you talk about like the fact that you are this grand, incredibly visionary party that's just going to like smash capitalism or whatever, and then you bring to the electorate, like an extra couple of billion for social housing, dental care to Medicare. These are your grand reforms.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
Well, and my point is, you want going forward a party that's going to be able to manage really complex issues around like IR as our workplaces transform, like our workplaces as this massive AI transformation. Like most of the jobs, especially in white collar jobs, are going to disappear. What are those people going to do? How do we keep people in jobs?
Do you know what we do? What do we do? Does anyone know?
What people in Australia?
Yeah, well, it's just like, I don't know. Gave the game away the other day. Like I had a tax accountant that was just saying like, yeah, the spreadsheet does everything. And so I said, so you're useless. And she goes, there's a creative aspect to this job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, accountants went from doing the numbers to financial planning. So they do something else.
They do something else, yeah.
They do something else. So humans, like we were very adaptable. Adversity is the mother of invention. We're going to do something else. In Australia, we'll probably just become like a place where we serve Mai Tais and marijuana and, hey, have you seen the crocodile? For the rest of the world. We're going to become a tourism hub, probably high-end manufacturing, get good at making, like specialising. That's the key thing. We do a couple of things really well. We grow, fantastic apples here or whatever the fuck it is. Agriculture, we make something for, computing, cannabis, and a great place to go and suck clean air if you happen to live in, Xiamen, and you want your holiday and you want to get out of China. We'll come here and, a great big holiday destination. Australia's got a massive advantage in ecologically, massive resources, and I think we specialise. But you want a party that's good at transitions. Labor's much better than that. look, the coalition is the party of the status quo. Let's just keep, everything as it is.
Yeah.
Let's keep everything as the status quo.
Yeah.
The Greens purported to be the party of just, complete revolution, and no one wants that shit.
No.
Now, I want to talk about another revolution, and that is talk about vanquished foes, and that is Waleed Ali.
Oh my God.
Now, we've sorted out just then in that hour what's happening in politics. It's a one-party state, and we're going to turn Australia into a tourism and manufacturing superpower. What the fuck's going to happen with media? It's already happened. What has happened? We've seen another of your foes, another head on a spike on the ramparts.
Yeah.
Look, what happens now? Like, it's all come to bear. Maybe it's just...
Look, I think that honestly what happened with the project, and it was a very good reflection of...
And Q&A.
And Q&A. Oh, man. God, one after the other.
Well, just before you start, because so you don't have to and no one else has to, I did, in preparation for this, I read Waleed's Cope opinion piece in the 9 Fairfax, and he was just explaining why it wasn't his fault and all the rest of it. But one of the things he said was content aside. He said, content aside, the reason that this has all happened is because advertisers aren't spending money in our shows anymore. And I'm going, well, maybe they're not spending money on your show because the content is shit and no one watches it.
the show.
So if you just skip over the content bit and then go to, oh no, we've lost our advertising, that's why it's all a bundle of poop on the floor. Well, it was always going to end like this.
Yeah, I would imagine. So that's what he said.
Yeah.
He said, like, in a roundabout way, exactly what, like, that is classically Waleed Ali, writing a long opinion piece to essentially to hide the fact we have been cancelled due to low ratings.
Yeah. And the low
That's
ratings
been that man's
are because...
entire career, hasn't it? Summed up. It's the same thing that angers me endlessly about Malcolm Turnbull. Just say something clear. Can you just say so? They can't, because that whole tealy person has no morals or convictions or anything, really. They're just vacuous, substanceless people. I remember once him making a statement about the fact that when he was getting in there, he was like, I don't have any opinions. I don't want anything to change. I just I'm... But like, again, doing the whole thing of just hiding it, and it's just like, why am I there? Because my contract is $2 million.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's just inane.
Nothing.
It is inane. He goes, this is the issue, this on one hand, that on the other hand, there. And then and now Steve Price.
Summed it up so well. Yeah, and now Stephen Price.
And now Steve Price.
To even things out.
To even things out.
Yeah.
To
From
go,
someone who said nothing to someone to sit there and just be
Yeah.
like, watch 2GB said this morning? Yeah, that.
And I'm intelligent because I'm, perpetually pondering the issue.
Yes.
I'm just, rather than coming down.
So much wank.
I just can't, I look back and I remember Q&A was, back, I suppose a decade ago when people might have watched it. I still, the only thing I can remember from Q&A is someone threw a shoe. That was about it. Someone threw a shoe at John Howard.
No, that's right.
That was it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember a moment where it's at a stroke, with the platform like this, with all these people, the leaders of Australian, thought and society, and this intellectual, Socratic discourse happening, and these questions from the public that aren't curated, of course. Aren't curated. No.
Free-form discussion.
Free-form discussion.
Of high ideas.
What got coughed out? Fucking zero.
Zero. Absolutely. What a true, you couldn't fucking ask for anything else.
Yeah.
Like, we paid, how much you reckon that their budget would have been over the years? Tens of millions? We paid tens of millions for noise.
Yeah.
That's what we paid for, just like static.
Yeah.
That's, oh my God.
Just the status quo, just to maintain the status quo. The
Nothing
same,
being said.
just a set piece. Just a set piece where everyone goes, hold on. It's just Groundhog Day. It's just the same people saying the same things. And at the end, it's just like, oh, well, we've got balance, and we've basically maintained this fucking conservative paradigm, and with no change. And I just thank fuck it's over. That's all I can say.
I think too. that was just such an obnoxious phase of the propaganda model, honestly, the last 10 years. I think that the reason that the project went that way, and I think that this is just vindicated by the fact that the cheap seats essentially is just the project. And I think that you can just, especially Channel 10 was just designed for this. It was a much more 90s model that they had with shows like The Panel. And look, maybe if you had something more edgy and you had a more edgy ABC, you would have just moved to something more similar to, you know what? Q&A used to just be the Glass House. It used to just be funny. And there was actual things that were said. And obviously they've just completely raised out any edge to anything. It's honestly like the big shift, I think, the frog in the water that really happened with the ABC is the shift where John Howard went in and he did his inquiry into left-wing bias or whatever the fuck that meant. And then coincidentally after that, the Glass House was cancelled. Now, I go back and I watch the Glass House to this day. It was pointed. It was funny. It was very funny, actually. Like, the jokes were very fucking clever and hard-hitting. And it was actually making a point about what was happening in politics that week. The discussion that I go back and look at, and you hear comedians and I don't know, like Napoleon, that fucking hairstylist or whatever, was saying more important things that was being said on the fucking Q&A. It was honestly astonishing to watch. It was astonishing to watch.
Yeah,
and
that's
then,
because
and
they
that
let they
discourse has been dumbed down
they
entirely.
let real people on. They didn't. That it wasn't pre-digested. You know, like
Is that why? That makes sense.
it is, but like they wouldn't ever like let real people on. They want to know what you're gonna. I once got vetted to go on Q&A, and they said, we want you to come on Q&A and we want you to say this. This was the opinion, you know, that we want you to keep pushing. So they basically had this set piece, not, hey, come on the show. This is a discussion that's going to happen, and you just, you know, we'll find out what you
without the teleprompter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They were so terrified
Yep.
of creating a discussion, creating controversy, creating interest.
Yes.
That they fucking disappeared in like a black hole, like a supernova, and just fucking disappeared into nothing and then boom.
So true. So true.
And
mandated to do it too.
Yeah,
mandated to do it. Honestly, astonishing. And so, like, I think that's what happened to the ABC. I think a very good transition between that was looking at the difference between the Glass House and the Chaser. The Chaser immediately came on, and then it was, instead of like saying like this is Howard's AUWB scandal or something like that, it was just like, oh, John Howard goes on a walk every week, so we decided to just walk behind him. Like, it was just government mandated jackass.
Yeah,
and this was known as like satire as a result, and that's what became the thing. And I will hang this around their neck for the day I die, because it was the biggest hurdle. It took me 10 years of my life to just drill into our generation. Those two major parties are not the same. And I went back and I watched a season of The Chaser. This is the whole thing that Gen Y was brought up with. This is what was hypnotizing them over and over again. They're the same. Yeah. They're the same. They're the same. That was the message. That's where that little bird chirp came from. And so then you had the Glass
and that's what
House
the
after
Greens
that, which was just
seized on.
getting rid
The
of
Greens
jackassy
seized on.
part. Huh?
Yeah, the Liberals, the Purples, the Greens are still hanging on to that. Oh, they're exactly the same. You know, they're exactly the same party.
Yep.
It's the Liberals, Labor, voted Liberal, voted. Clive got on it.
Yes,
and that was, there was a brainwashing and indoctrination into that when there was like this massive difference between the two.
Massive differences. That was, and I think, again, it was a media narrative that was just put in from the beginning, right? And it's the same thing. The media narrative in this country has always been the Liberal Party are the party of adults that know what they're doing. That's the first one. When that messaging doesn't work with the public anymore, it's, oh, they're all the same, they're all terrible. And then it just moves back and forth. You know, then they get them in, then you just get like a minority government filled with the Greens and stuff, and then it's just like, oh, this government's so unstable, we need like stability back. And that's the fucking grift that has been happening since the beginning of Federation, essentially. And that's the media, the landscape that's happened since then. Have you ever read Sally Young's book, Paper Emperors?
No, never.
Incredible. One of the greatest books I've ever read. It's just her detailing the outlined history of how papers were set up in this country, and it was basically just a tool as a counterweight against union newsletters. That's the entire point of them existing from the beginning. It hasn't changed. You can see it in the project to this day that, like, you know, this is supposedly regarded as just like the lefty fucking media outlet in this country, which was just honestly, it was just like, is that what it means? Is it Waleed Ali getting indignant about an Islamophobic remark that rubbed him the wrong way said this week? Is that what it is? Is it? And then you just see him just go from like, that's actually racism, and then just move straight to, anyway, here's a report from the IPA on how unions are holding back construction. Like, it was just over and over again. Like, you so constantly just feeding all of these think tanky fucking points that are just anti-union points in the project. And this is the media diversity in this country. That was astonishing to me. That, like, you look,
Yeah,
the
or
aesthetic
again,
changes, but the main aim of the news in this country has never changed, ever. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
well, you saw it again and again and again with the transition to renewable energy, and they'd say, look, climate change, it's a problem, but how much will electricity prices rise? They're always, always, really, really smashing up the fear campaign around electricity prices rising and around renewable energy. And one of the key things that's made the electricity transition more expensive is this resistance to it from the conservative side of politics. So you just see again and again they have they create this narrative that perpetuates the problem, maintains the status quo, and makes them relative, because they don't want the problems we're dealing with dealt with, and they become part of the problem in dumbing down the discourse, avoiding
Can I just say, it's not my imagination, right? Like, when you were younger, media discourse in this country was more intelligent than it is now, right?
Like, I remember,
is that wrong?
Yeah, no, it 100%. Like, I remember Paul Keating, getting on and talking like on Today Tonight or whatever about
current affair
about how superannuation was going to work. And, as a percentage of the wage, and we'll build this savings, and then et cetera and so forth. And then we'll have a pool of money that can invest in new industries and training and productivity.
On a current affair.
Yeah, on a current affair. And talking about taxation policy and the nuances on it. Whereas, it just turned into a clown show about whether or not, power prices, your power bill is going to go up. And it's renewable energy, when it was way more complex like that than that. There was a whole heap of issues around the ownership of the networks, the privatization of the networks that led to, they're making profits out of it. The cost of raising capital and investing that in renewable energy, because we're trying to save the fucking planet here. So there was this complex discourse, and you just had this cartoon. It was like, there's just this set piece cartoon again and again and again, and you saw it across the place. So everyone fucking turned off. Everyone went, hold on. Like, I'm not
This is stupid.
Yeah, this is stupid. I'm going to find my news somewhere else. And so, hence, that really has happened, because people they wanted essentially a four corners, like sure, there's color, there's movement, there's humor in what you do, but they wanted actually some detail in there, because they're not fucking stupid.
Fed it. They're not fed it at all.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Fairy floss.
Yeah, they want to understand what's going on, why it's going on, and they understand that if they hear the same thing over and over and over again, they go, well, hold on, I'm probably being fucking sold a pup here. I want some change, and fuck, we've got it. So now,
that's
mate,
one thing, yeah.
what happens with what is going to happen with legacy media? Is free to air television just going to be switched off, or has it just become infomercials? What do you reckon happens?
If I was them, I would try and understand. Look, I think when it comes to anything that has ever existed ever, maybe the medium changes, but like, if it works, it works. There's like formats that just have worked since the 50s that still work to this day. And I think that Channel 10 should understand what it was in its heyday was more or less just like a commercially friendly version of what the ABC was doing with its comedy shows. It should have just been very light into that. I think that the project, for instance, when it first started out, was more or less just light jabs at the news that day, and that was it. It was just like, here's what is talking in the headlines, here's some safe jokes, roll the commercial. You could have just run that forever, I reckon, and it would have been absolutely fine, and you wouldn't have had the same disdain that you had. For whatever reason, I think that it became like the ideology of executives in this country, like it did in the US, like it did in Europe, which was just, there was this like, this very performative SJW-iness that started to happen in like the 2016 period. And then they went into that territory. And so then that led great disdain, especially in the Australian public's mouth, that they've never recovered from ever. Because again, it was like corporate friendly, performative, like pandering. And then the next phase after that, I think, was then you had the West go through. It's just like, oh, political correctness has gone too mad. Like, but you probably are old enough to remember these cycles are not new. Like, this has happened through society many, many, many times before, and they go in and out. And then you have your culture warriors on those sides that like rise and shoot up in fame because of the media coverage that they get. And then where are they now? They all disappear. They all just go into the oblivion because people just get tired of that argument. Again, like what you were saying, it's the same argument over and over again. They're just like, I'm bored of that. I need something else, right? And so then it just moved to just like, oh yeah, political correctness has gone too mad. Like the anti SJW crowd that got their like 2 cents in the day. I think because of the ideology of corporate executives in Australia, they never like ran on that coattail. Instead, they went to like more just, all right, we'll tone back on that. What does Malcolm Turnbull think this week? The show. That's I think. I think that's what like the project became in its dying days, and then nobody wants to watch that because nobody wants to see people saying absolutely nothing and being scared while doing it. Like, why the fuck would you want to watch that? That was incredible to me. The amount of fear that you hear on Triple J, it's especially extenuated when you listen to Triple J.
Yeah,
because it's just the voice that you're listening to, and it's just Fear FM. That's it. Terrified of everything that they're saying. Exactly just like the project. Obviously, that's going to tune more people out.
Well, they might say something controversial. They might get noticed at all. They have an opinion that's not been, sanctified by the Borg, and then they're out. They're gone.
They're
shot.
Gone. Yep.
Shot at dawn.
Yes, and it's not just like a paycheck.
I remember when Triple J used to have people like just getting stoned live, and
Don't
like
you think?
just
Don't
and,
you think?
and like it was
And
a
the
pirate
glory days.
radio.
And why has that changed?
Yeah.
Why has that changed?
Yeah.
Why didn't that? It was exactly what you were talking about then. It was edgy in the sense that it was kind of just like, we don't give a shit FM.
Yeah.
That's why it was cool. That's gone. It's exactly the opposite now. We care FM. We care too much FM.
Yeah.
And
I heard them talking about like why the other day about toxic masculinity, why you can't use that term anymore. And it was so hilarious because I was saying, well, if you use the term toxic masculinity, you're sort of casting aspersion over all males. Like, duh, like, yes, like what the fuck? You have to have a discourse and
Is this on Hack?
I think so.
Yeah, it's such a hack.
A dissembly.
Isn't it incredible that it's called Hack?
I know.
It's incredible.
But pulling it apart, why the term toxic masculinity has been counterproductive because it's alienated like most men who go, hey, just because I'm a man doesn't mean I'm toxic, and what are you talking about? And they had to explain why they were moving away from the SJW stuff. And I was just like, oh my fucking God. This is so pathetic, and like, just bring back the pirates. Bring back the pirates. Bring back the pirate radio. Like that's what people want. They want.
You're right. I swear to God, their ratings are still they're dead. It's the same thing as what you were talking about before. It's mostly Gen Xers that seem to listen to it these days. It's not even a youth station anymore. And yeah, the heyday was American Rosso pressing the button that shuts down the station. Like that. That was the glory days.
I know.
Where is it? And so I
think Merrick's a health freak now.
Oh yeah,
he's like a wellness health freak,
isn't he?
Yeah,
yeah.
I know.
That's changed massively. What?
I'm like,
go back to the Chico roll eating contest. And, yeah.
Exactly. Right, what happened?
What happened to you, Merrick? You used to be cool. Yeah.
You used to be fat.
Used to be fat.
You used to be fat and politically incorrect, and now we've just.
And now
but-
you're a fitness instructor.
Yeah, that's a fitness instructor. Well, but like it's going to come back. I think people. That's what people want. That's like they want entertainment. They want people who are prepared to take risks and to be genuine, authentic, or at least
Isn't
fucking
it just
fake it.
incredible how removed these people are? Because again, I feel like that they are just taking trends from Britain and the US, and they are so removed from the Australian public because they live in their little, inner west fiefdoms, that they don't understand that what like basically our only distinction culturally in Australia is larrikinism.
Yeah.
Like that has been completely extinguished from the media landscape. Like, who the fuck is a larrikin left in the Australian mainstream media landscape?
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are your American Rossos? Where the fuck are they? They're all gone.
Yeah,
There's
like
none there.
if you look back at who our cultural icons were, going back to sort of Dad and Dave, or
Yeah.
like back in the 1920s, whatever
Yeah.
they were people who were saying like like edgy shit where you go, oh, hold on, like nowadays we'd make them apologize and sack them, and we'd send them to Coventry, but they're like Paul Hogan, even like Steve Irwin. The reason we like Steve Irwin because we're going, this guy, and rest in peace, Steve Irwin, he could die live on TV. He's a larrikin, he's funny, he's fucking, he's way too close to that fucking crocodile.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
We want politicians too. Like people, like who have we got? We've got Bob Catter.
You got Bob Catter.
We've got Bob Catter.
Barnaby Joyce, I'll give him his credit.
Yeah, but Barnaby, exactly. That's what people want. They want someone who's going to.
But yeah, again, like what you're saying, don't you think Bob Catter, even though everybody knows that he's insane, he might be the most beloved politician in the country?
Yeah,
He might be, because that's just Queensland is a double dose of Australia, and far north Queensland is a double dose of Queensland.
Yeah. He's like every Australian, just more so. And but that's what the people want. And people I think, are forgiving of people who take risks and put forward ideas and are like genuine. And that risk is, I'm going to go out in public and try and explain something difficult. We've thought about something, and like Albo did that. He went out and said, look, we've got a plan. We're going to put something forward. It is difficult. It's going to be a process to bring people along. But people went, oh, fuck, someone's treating me like an adult. And someone's like, they're taking a risk. They're showing some vulnerability. That's what really being a larrikin is. You're taking a risk. You're showing some you do it like for a fucking career, man. I'm not telling you anything. And people go, look, I don't have to agree with everything he says, but he's taking a risk. He's got an opinion. He's building, our understanding and an idea. And fuck, I'm tuning in for that. I'm turning on and tuning in for that because that's fucking interesting. Whereas it's pre-digested set pieces. That's the message for our politicians is, take risks, treat people like adults. And they'll fucking come with you.
I think so. I definitely think so. I think that what is happening culturally now, what Channel 10 is moving into, have you seen what they're replacing the project with?
Well, I haven't, mate.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's going to be like, shining a torch on corruption, holding them to account.
Yeah,
That's what it said. And I thought, here we go. I'm so glad that you clocked onto it because that is now my guardrail in my mind, and it seems to be yours as well, of like, this person is, again, because it's the same thing as the SJWs and then the anti-SJW movement, I think culturally now, for whatever reason, it's the holding them to account crew.
Oh.
These are the ones, like shining a torch. And it's like, you think Channel 10 is going to shine a torch on corruption?
Yeah.
You think Channel 10 with all of its advertisers are going to sit there and hold them, keep the bastards honest?
Yeah.
Like, is anyone stupid
Which is just
enough
another
in 2025 to think that? Is it?
It's just a fucking another rehash. It's just,
Is it?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's what the Democrats were.
Yeah,
that's what
exactly. Of course. Yep.
They came around, keep the bastards honest.
Yeah.
That was that's it's like just 40 years.
It's a merry-go-round.
It's a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
And that's what the Greens, you can see the Greens and Susan Ley, that's what they're going to move to. And because what it does is it assumes that the person we're holding to account is fucking up and they're rotten and they're corrupt and you got to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's just it's condescending. It's supercilious. It just assumes this authority and this sanctity, and it's just fucking aggravating and pathetic. What they should be doing is going, fuck, we better come up with a new brand and some good ideas about the problems we're facing rather than just, chirp from the side and throw sand in the gears of the government. Straight away you see Larissa Waters saying, well, we're going to hold the government to account and we're going to push Labor further and all of these things. What about your own fucking ideas? What do you stand for? What are the big problems in Australia? What are the big problems in globally that you're going to solve? What are you going to bring to the table? Fucking zero.
Fucking zero. Nothing. There is nothing. And look, actually, okay, I will give the Liberal Party some credit. If it is going to survive, even over the next term, I honestly think they haven't earned the right to have any ideas yet. Like, if you got a defeat that bad, you need to figure out what the fuck happened in granular detail. And you need to be able to be, and this is something that I think is incredible, because I don't think that the Greens or the Liberal Party, I think the Liberal Party has the honesty to look at what happened. I don't know if they have the capability to act on it. And I think that that's exactly what happened in 2019 when Bill Shorten lost that election.
Yeah,
Labor
it's a
looked
good
at it
point.
and was just like, what the fuck just happened there? And they had the fortitude and resolve to actually address it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the Liberal Party has that resolve. And the Greens are such a cult that they've done that same doomsday denialist cultist shit that, like, it seems to be the animus of their party, which is just like the world is going to end tomorrow. Exactly like what they did with...
Didn't end.
Yeah, it didn't end. Next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. It'll happen next Tuesday. Yeah, sorry, that's what happened. Yeah.
We've got okay. Yeah, next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, they pinned it in, mark my words. And then when it doesn't happen, it was just like, it was because we all prayed so hard that we saved the world. Thank you. Like, keep the money rolling in. That seems to be exactly how they fucking run. And so, like, as a result of that, they seem to have absolutely zero capacity for introspection. Like, the fact that Adam Bant was interviewed by Sarah Ferguson, I think it was, 7:30, and it was just her asking over and over again, where do you think you went wrong? Probably a good question to ask if you lost your seat as leader. Probably a good question to ask. What could he put back? The talking points that lost him the election. Yeah. That's it. He could just regurgitate the same talking points that lost him the election. I mean, no introspection.
The leader before him, Richard Di Natale, was saying, I think by this election, they would have 25 seats across the country. And they're like, they just hung on to the one, like teal, sort of like teal in Queensland. The one seat they probably thought, well, we don't care if we lose. They hang on to that.
Yeah.
And just no capacity to go, that was a pretty fucked strategy. People saw through that. What do? Well, they just continue on into like that. That's what the Democrats did.
Did they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They just stuck at their strategy.
We're holding him to account.
Yeah, they're holding to the account strategy, and they just disappeared into oblivion. It took a couple of election cycles, but I'd expect that the Greens winning lower house seats now are real, like almost an impossibility up against the machinery of Labor, against teals competing against them, independents. And what are they going to do? Hang on to some Senate seats. So, I just think that their incapacity to recognise that their strategy was wrong and to put forward some, really genuine ideas. What are the big environmental crises we have in this country? Is that going to is that going to cause enough people to vote for them when they go, oh, well, actually, we've got a government here, Labor, who are working on these things? I think that they're in real trouble, and they're being flanked by parties like us and on some of the other big social issues. So yeah, look, it's a super interesting time in Australian politics. Like we've probably got a Labor government in power, I think, for a decade.
Yeah.
With that sort of margin. Well, it's like 2 or 3 election cycles, unless, there's World War III, or then it's all fucking over, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But probably Labor in power and with like an agenda, an economy, and pretty well placed to bring about these reforms. The renewable energy transition is going to be locked in that time. Like we are going to see Australia probably at like 80-90% renewable energy in the next 5 or 6 years. We're going to see this massive transformation in terms of AI. I know, like talking to people like Daniel Mookie in the New South Wales, the Treasurer, they're alive to it. You know, there's massive transitions in our workforce that are going to need someone who's good at IR, good at bringing, you know, workplaces together, bringing business and bringing businesses and workers together in power, working on it in a grown-up way. And I just don't think that the Liberals, you know, have got the ideas for it, and the Greens, well, you know, they're just a irrelevancy now. So super interesting times for politics, the media. Mate, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the work you're doing in, you know, making politics interesting, making it like, you know, bringing a larrikin edge to it, making it funny, making it interesting, and drilling down into it because fucking needed, mate. You know, we need the fourth estate. You know, we need media shining a light on what's happening in society and saying, actually, you know, let's really get into the weeds of what's happening, why it's happening, and I think you've brought a lot of people along with you, mate. So thanks very much, mate, for coming on the weeds. Thanks very much for the work you do.
No, thank you. Always a pleasure.